It was late, far past midnight. The kind of hour when the world seems to hold its breath, and only the lonely hum of the truck's engine keeps you company. I'm Jake, a trucker, been on the road for years. You get used to the solitude, the long stretches of highway that seem endless, the quiet of the open roads. But tonight, something felt off. I was hauling a load of equipment down I-80, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. I had been driving for over 10 hours straight and was looking for a place to pull off and catch some rest. The GPS led me to a truck stop that looked like it had been there since the 70s. Old neon lights flickered above the entrance, casting an eerie glow that didn't exactly scream safe haven. I pulled in, tired, ready to just crash for a few hours. As I parked, I noticed something strange. The lot was completely empty, not a single other truck in sight. Usually, these stops are packed with rigs, drivers getting fuel or grabbing a bite. But tonight, nothing. I shrugged it off. Sometimes it's just the way it is on the road. Maybe everyone was ahead of me or stopped somewhere else. But as I stepped out of the cab, a cold chill crept up my spine. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I couldn't explain it, but something felt wrong. I locked up the truck and walked inside, trying to shake off the feeling. The bell over the door jingled as I entered, but it didn't sound quite right, almost as if it was delayed. I glanced around, and the place was eerily quiet. The neon lights in here buzzed, casting an unsettling glow over the cracked linoleum floor. Behind the counter stood a woman. She was tall, thin, and her face was hidden in the shadows. Her skin looked pale, almost translucent under the flickering lights. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice soft, almost too soft. I nodded and ordered a coffee, but my eyes kept darting to the windows. It was quiet outside, but not in the usual way. It was oppressive, like the night itself was holding its breath. As she prepared the coffee, I noticed a large, old map on the wall behind her. There were markings on it, all over the place, some faded, some recent. I couldn't make out the exact details from where I stood, but it gave me an uneasy feeling. I turned back to the woman, and something in her eyes made me freeze. They were wide, unnaturally wide, almost like she was staring into something I couldn't see. "You look like you've been on the road for a while," she said, her voice soft, almost too familiar. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. "Long day." She set the coffee cup down, her hand steady despite the strange aura around her. "Be careful out there. Not all roads are safe at night." I felt my stomach tighten. Her words sent a chill down my spine, like a warning that had been there for years, just waiting for me to hear it. But before I could ask her what she meant, the lights flickered again, and the door slammed open behind me. I turned around just in time to see a shadow move quickly past the windows outside. I couldn't see anything clearly, but the chill in the air grew sharper. Something was out there, something that had been waiting for me to arrive. I grabbed the coffee, paid quickly, and made my way back to the truck, my footsteps echoing loudly in the silence. As I climbed into the cab, I glanced back at the truck stop, and I swear I saw her standing in the doorway, watching me leave. I didn't think much of it at first. The road can mess with your head sometimes. But as I drove away, the hairs on the back of my neck didn't settle. The feeling of being watched, of something lurking just beyond the edge of my vision, stayed with me. I should have kept driving. I should have kept my eyes on the road and never looked back. But when I did, I saw it. The truck rattled beneath me as I pushed it down the highway, the engine's hum filling the cab, trying to drown out the rising unease. I told myself it was just the fatigue messing with my head, the isolation creeping in, but deep down, I knew something was off. That woman's face, the map, the shadow I saw outside. My instincts were screaming at me to stop, but I couldn't. I had miles to go, and I couldn't afford to rest. Not yet. The dark stretch of road ahead seemed endless. The headlights barely pierced the thick darkness that surrounded me. All I could see were the road lines and the occasional flicker of my dashboard lights. But then, the radio buzzed. I didn't touch the dial, didn't even think about it. The static filled the cab, followed by a voice, raspy, crackling, as if coming from far away. "Jake, you should have stayed." My heart skipped a beat. I snapped my head to the radio, my fingers instinctively gripping the wheel tighter. Who the hell was that? I knew it wasn't a normal transmission. I wasn't even near a station that could broadcast. Just static. "Jake." The voice repeated, its rasping tone sending cold shivers down my spine. "You're not alone." I flicked the switch to turn the radio off, but it didn't stop. The words came through louder, clearer. Each one cut through the silence like a knife. "You saw us, didn't you?" My hands shook as I turned the volume knob, trying to silence it, but it wouldn't stop. The voice was relentless, almost mocking, and then it became distorted, like the speaker was in another room, but I could still hear every word. "You're in our world now." I slammed my fist onto the dashboard, forcing the radio to finally go silent. My heart was racing, and sweat was dripping down my forehead. The truck seemed to sway beneath me as I drove faster, my knuckles white from gripping the wheel. I was ready to stop and pull over, but I didn't. I couldn't. I needed to get to my destination. Maybe I was just hearing things. Maybe the isolation was playing tricks on me. I pressed harder on the gas, the truck roaring down the empty road. The only thing I could hear now was the tires on the asphalt and the blood pounding in my ears. And then, just as I thought I might be going crazy, it happened. I saw it in the distance, at first, a flicker of light, small, like a firefly. But as I approached, it grew. A shape. A figure. Standing in the middle of the road. I slammed my foot on the brake, but it was too late. The figure was right there, barely 10 feet in front of me. I swerved to the side, narrowly missing it, and the truck skidded on the gravel shoulder. My heart was in my throat as I fought to regain control. I pulled the truck back onto the road, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I dared not look back, afraid to see what might be behind me. But when I glanced in the rearview mirror, I saw it. A figure, standing still in the middle of the road, watching me drive away. It wasn't a person. It was too tall, too unnatural. It didn't move like a human. Its arms hung low, almost as if they were too long for its body. The silhouette was faint, but there was something about it that made my stomach churn, something that screamed wrong. I didn't care what it was. I wasn't stopping. Not for anything. The road stretched on, but now it felt like I was being pursued, hunted, as if the shadows themselves were reaching for me. Every inch of me screamed to get away, but the further I drove, the more the darkness closed in. Every now and then, I'd glance in the side mirror, but all I could see were those same eyes, pale, empty, watching me. I could feel them, even when I wasn't looking. And that's when I saw the truck. It was a rig, parked on the shoulder up ahead. But it wasn't just any truck. The paint was chipped, rust covering the frame. The headlights were on, but they didn't illuminate anything, they just stared into the night, empty, lifeless. I knew it wasn't supposed to be there. It didn't belong. As I approached, I could make out the figure of a man standing next to it. He was tall, just like the thing I'd seen earlier, but his features were obscured by the shadows. He was standing still, unmoving, staring straight at me. I couldn't slow down. I couldn't stop. But something inside me screamed to pull over. I did anyway. The truck came to a screeching halt just a few feet away from the man. The engine sputtered, and the headlights flickered before going out entirely. The darkness closed in, suffocating, and I felt a cold sweat break out over my body. The man didn't move. I stared at him for what felt like an eternity, but he never budged, never blinked. The silence was suffocating. Then, in a voice colder than the wind outside, he spoke. You shouldn't have come here. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. You shouldn't have come here. My mind raced, but my body froze. I was paralyzed, unable to move, unable to speak. The man standing by the truck was no longer just a shadow, he was real, tangible, and he was staring straight at me with eyes that seemed to glow with an unnatural intensity. My hands shook on the wheel, but I couldn't bring myself to start the truck. Something was holding me there, some force beyond my understanding, some cold presence I couldn't escape. The air outside felt thick, as if it was pressing down on me, and the night seemed to grow darker, deeper, like it was swallowing everything whole. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but my voice wouldn't come. It was as though the very atmosphere was suffocating me, trapping my words inside. The man took a step forward, his long, unnatural limbs moving with a stiff, jerky motion that made my skin crawl. He didn't walk like a person, he glided, as if his feet never really touched the ground. The headlights had gone out, leaving us in a pitch-black void, and for a moment, I thought about speeding off. But my foot wouldn't move to the gas pedal. My eyes were locked on his, and I could feel his presence more than I could see it. It was as if he were getting closer, even though he hadn't moved. Then, out of nowhere, a voice cut through the silence. But this time, it wasn't from the man. It came from behind me. The truck's rearview mirror flickered, and I saw it, something moving in the reflection, something that didn't belong. A figure, no, figures, shifting in the shadows, slowly creeping toward me. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me, but when I looked up and into the mirror again, they were closer. More of them. Tall, grotesque shapes, their movements stiff and jerky, like marionettes being pulled by invisible strings. I turned back to the man standing next to my truck. He was closer now, just a few feet away from the driver's side door. You've seen them, haven't you? His voice was low, deep, and filled with an unsettling calmness. They've been watching you, Jake. Watching you for a long time. I finally found my voice, though it barely rose above a whisper. What the hell are you? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he tilted his head to the side, like he was considering my question. Then, in a voice colder than ice, he replied, I am the one who watches the road. And so are they. I felt the blood drain from my face. The figures in the rearview mirror were now just feet behind me. Their hollow, empty eyes glared at me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. What do you want from me? I asked, my voice shaking. The man's expression didn't change, but I could see the faintest smile tugging at the corner of his lips. It wasn't a smile of warmth, though, it was the kind of smile you give when you know you've already won. You've already been marked, he said softly. The road has claimed you. There's no turning back now. My heart pounded in my chest. Marked? What do you mean, marked? He took another step closer, and the air grew colder, sharper, as if the very atmosphere was being sucked away from me. Everything you've seen, the trucks that vanish, the roads that lead nowhere. It's all part of it. It's the price you pay for driving too far. He paused, his eyes narrowing. But now, it's your turn. The road will never let you leave. Suddenly, I was overwhelmed with a feeling I can't explain. A sense of helplessness, of being trapped in a nightmare with no escape. I looked into the side mirror again, and the figures were right there, they were standing beside my truck now, their long limbs reaching toward me. Their hollow eyes bore into me, and the air felt thick with a suffocating pressure. I couldn't breathe. The man's grin widened as he continued, the road is ours, Jake. And now, so are you. I slammed my foot onto the gas pedal, but nothing happened. The truck didn't move. My heart raced as I glanced at the dashboard, everything was dead. No lights, no power, no response. The engine was silent. I was trapped. The figures behind me were closing in, and the man was still standing there, his cold eyes locked on mine. I tried again, turning the key, desperately hoping for the engine to roar to life. But nothing. The truck remained still, as if the road itself had a hold on it. I turned to the man, eyes wide with panic. "What the hell do you want from me?" He didn't answer. Instead, the ground beneath the truck began to rumble, slowly at first, then with increasing intensity. The shadows around us seemed to deepen, to writhe and coil like living things. The figures behind me were no longer just watching, they were moving toward me. The air was thick, charged with a dark energy that sent waves of terror through me. And then I saw it. From the corner of my eye, a pair of eyes gleamed in the darkness, too bright, too intense. As I turned, I saw the headlights of another truck, racing toward me down the empty highway. But it wasn't the headlights I noticed first. It was the silhouette of the driver. The truck's headlights blazed toward me, cutting through the darkness like a spear. I thought for a moment that help had arrived, that maybe, just maybe, someone else was out here, someone who could pull me out of this nightmare. But the closer it got, the more wrong it felt. The truck wasn't like any I had seen before. The lights were too bright, too harsh, like they were trying to blind me. And the sound of the engine, it wasn't the deep, rumbling roar of a heavy-duty rig. It was more like the growl of something alive, something twisted and unnatural. I couldn't move. The figures were now surrounding me, their long limbs scraping against the truck like claws on metal, their hollow eyes filled with hunger. I was stuck, immobilized, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The other truck roared past, its tires kicking up dirt and gravel as it barreled down the road. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the driver behind the wheel. It was him. The same man who had been standing beside my truck just moments ago, but now, he was driving that truck, staring at me with those same cold, glowing eyes. His face was twisted into an unholy grin, a grin that seemed to mock me, to taunt me for thinking I could escape. "Welcome to the road, Jake," the voice came from the darkness, as if it had always been there, whispering in my ear. "There's no getting off once you're on. You're ours now. Forever." The truck continued to speed past, the rumbling engine shaking the very ground beneath me. And in that moment, I knew. I knew I wasn't going anywhere. No one was coming to save me. The road was mine now, and it would never let me go. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel, but the truck still wouldn't move. I was suffocating in the silence, the pressure of the darkness pressing against me from all sides. The figures that had been watching me were now close enough to touch. Their hands, long, bony, and impossibly thin, scratched at the sides of my truck, their nails scraping against the metal in a noise that made my skin crawl. I looked back to the road ahead, and I saw something even more terrifying than the figures around me. The sky. The stars had disappeared, leaving only an endless, swirling black void. The road ahead seemed to stretch on forever, endless and infinite, disappearing into the darkness. There was no horizon. No sign of life. No way out. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow moving in the distance. A truck. Another one. It was the same rig. The same driver. It had come back for me. This time, though, it wasn't just a figure standing beside it. The man was inside, the same twisted grin on his face, his eyes glowing brighter than ever, like burning embers in the night. I could feel the fear rising in my chest. I didn't want to see it, but I couldn't look away. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. The truck wouldn't move. The truck began to slow down, drawing closer to me. The engine's roar faded, replaced by a strange hum, like the sound of something unnatural, something from deep within the earth itself. The ground beneath me began to shake violently, and the figures surrounding me began to whisper. "You're ours." The air grew thick and cold, and I felt something crawl up the back of my neck. I turned to the window just in time to see the driver's face, twisted, distorted, nothing human about it anymore. His eyes weren't glowing now. They were empty. "Don't fight it, Jake," he whispered. "You should have known better than to wander off the road. Now you'll never leave." A cold wind blasted through the cracks of the truck, freezing me to the bone. The temperature dropped to an impossible low, and I could hear the sound of something scraping against the sides of my cab. The road, it wasn't just a road anymore. It was alive. The other truck was right beside mine now, its headlights blinding me. And then it happened. The truck, the one with the driver, no, it wasn't the driver anymore, began to shift, to distort in ways that shouldn't be possible. Its body began to contort, to stretch, like it was being pulled into a shape that was no longer human. It was becoming something else. The figures around me, the twisted, skeletal shadows, reached out to touch the truck. Their hands slid along the metal, leaving marks, glowing marks, like they were marking it as their own. "This is your new home," the voice whispered again, this time directly in my ear, cold and sharp, like ice. The road beneath the tires started to disappear, like it was melting away into the darkness, and the truck lurched forward, moving on its own accord. The figures surrounded me, their long fingers brushing against my skin, their eyes locked onto me, burning with cold hunger. I could feel myself slipping away. The truck was no longer just a vehicle. It had become part of the nightmare. Part of the road. I could hear the others now, their whispers growing louder, merging with the hum of the truck's engine. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The figures were gone. The noise, the pressure, everything. I looked around. The road was still there, but it wasn't the same road. It stretched endlessly into nothingness. The truck was still moving, but the engine was silent now, as though it were gliding. And then I heard the voice again. "You're not going anywhere, Jake. This is where you belong now." I knew what I had to do. There was no way out, no escape. The road had claimed me. The truck had claimed me. The driver, the man with the empty eyes, was gone now. But the road was always there. Waiting. I'd never leave. None of us ever leave. I thought it was over. I thought maybe I had escaped it somehow, some sort of divine intervention, a moment of clarity, but I was wrong. The road never lets go. It had been days, maybe longer. I couldn't tell. Time had lost meaning the moment I'd been swallowed by this nightmare. The truck was moving on its own, still gliding along that endless stretch of highway, the tires whispering against the asphalt like a pulse, a heartbeat that refused to stop. The horizon never changed. The sky never shifted. It wasn't day, it wasn't night, it was just a void. The kind of nothingness that seeps into your very soul. The road was alive. Every so often, I'd glance to my side, only to see the same shadows. They were always there, lingering just out of the corner of my eye, barely visible. The figures. The ones with long limbs and empty eyes. They had been with me since the moment I stopped at that truck stop. At first, I tried to ignore them. I tried to stay focused on the road, on the wheel, on anything to keep my sanity intact. But it was hard when every whisper that filled the truck made it feel like they were right next to me. When their cold fingers brushed against the glass, or when their nails scraped the door, the sound hauntingly familiar. Then, they started talking to me. "Jake," their voices whispered, soft at first, almost like the wind. "Jake, you can never leave. Jake, you're one of us now." The whispers were constant. Relentless. Everywhere I went, they were there. There were times when I thought I saw a figure in the distance, standing by the side of the road, just waiting for me to get closer. But as I approached, they would vanish into the mist, leaving only the dark highway ahead. There was no more stopping. No fuel, no food, no need to sleep, it didn't matter. The truck kept going, as if powered by something other than gasoline. The steering wheel was just a suggestion now. The truck moved as if it knew exactly where it was going. I started to see things, things that shouldn't be there. Once, in the distance, I thought I saw a highway sign. The kind you see on the side of the road, giving directions or a warning. This one was different. The words were too blurred, distorted, like they were trying to avoid being read. I tried to focus, but before I could make them out, the sign disappeared into the mist, replaced by an endless stretch of darkness. And the figures, every so often, I would glance in my side mirror and see one of them. They weren't just standing anymore. They were moving. Crawling along the road, like spiders, their limbs twisting at unnatural angles. Their eyes, those eyes, would follow me, never blinking, never stopping. I tried to drive faster. I tried to outrun them. But it didn't matter. There was nowhere to go. The road was endless. It just kept stretching out in front of me, turning into a tunnel, a void that swallowed everything in its path. Every time I tried to stop or pull off, there was no exit. No rest stops. No turn-offs. Just the road. The blacktop and the emptiness. Then one night, or what passed for night, in this strange place, I heard something. A voice. A human voice. Not the whispering shadows, but someone calling my name. Jake. I froze. I'd been hearing voices for so long, but this one was different. It wasn't cold and lifeless. It was desperate. Human. Jake, help me. I slammed on the brakes, almost crashing the truck, my hands shaking. I looked around frantically, scanning the empty road, but there was nothing. Only the sound of the wind and the hum of the tires beneath me. But the voice, it had been real. Please. Jake, I leaned forward in my seat, looking through the windshield. In the distance, there was a figure standing at the side of the road. A man. His arms were raised, as if pleading for help, his body slumped forward. Without thinking, I put the truck in gear and sped toward him. The closer I got, the more my stomach turned. I could feel the eyes of the figures watching me from all directions. I could hear their whispers, louder now, filling the truck with a sense of dread. The man was getting closer. When I was just a few feet away, I stopped. The truck rolled to a halt with a screech. The man's face was gaunt, pale, his eyes wide with terror. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His body was twisted, his limbs bent at unnatural angles, as if he'd been standing there for far too long, waiting. Waiting for me. And then I saw it. A shadow moved behind him, something darker than the night itself. It reached out, a long, bony arm, and touched the man's shoulder. He gasped, his eyes widening in horror. And then, he turned and looked directly at me, his mouth opening in a silent scream. And just like that, he was gone. Vanished into the darkness. The road stretched ahead. Empty. Silent. I stared into the abyss ahead of me. No turning back. The road had claimed me. Just like it had claimed him. And just like it would claim the next. I didn't know how much time had passed after the man vanished, seconds, minutes, hours. The truck was still rolling forward, the tires gliding across the asphalt without any input from me. The steering wheel felt like it was just for show now, an accessory in a nightmare that had long ago surpassed anything real. I sat there, staring into the black void ahead, my eyes stinging with the fatigue that refused to fade. The shadows were closer now. More of them. Everywhere. I could see them moving in my peripheral vision, their long limbs swaying, crawling along the truck like they were attached by invisible strings. Their eyes, empty and cold, followed me wherever I went, locked on me even when I wasn't looking. I could feel them in the air, like a chill that ran through my bones. But worse, much worse, was the feeling that something was with me in the cab. Something that wasn't supposed to be there. It was a presence, a cold weight in the air beside me. I kept glancing to the passenger seat, half expecting to see someone sitting there, but every time I looked, there was nothing, just the empty space, the worn leather of the seat staring back at me like an old wound. But the presence was real. I could feel it. My breath quickened, a knot forming in my throat. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the road, but the feeling was inescapable. It was like someone was sitting beside me, watching me, waiting. I dared a glance to the passenger seat. Nothing. But then, something moved in my peripheral vision. I jerked my head back to the road. My heart pounded in my chest. The air inside the cab felt thick, like it was pressing down on me. The whispers started. "Jake." It wasn't a voice from the radio. It wasn't from outside the truck. It was in my head. Clear. Crisp. Personal. The voice was close, too close. I could almost feel the breath against my ear, like someone was leaning right next to me, their presence filling the cab. "Jake, why are you running from us?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat felt dry, tight, like I was choking on the air. The whispers grew louder. And then, there was a movement. I turned my head again, this time slowly. There, sitting in the passenger seat, was a figure. A shadow. It wasn't a person, not really. It was something other. A shape that flickered and shifted, the edges of it curling like smoke, too fluid to be real. It had a form, but it didn't. The outline was there, but the features, those were blurry, constantly shifting, like the face of a nightmare that could never be fully remembered. I froze. It was watching me. It didn't move, but I could feel its gaze like a weight pressing down on me. "You're just like the others," the voice said. "You can feel it now, can't you? The road owns you. You've always known it." I wanted to scream. I wanted to run from this, but I couldn't. The truck was still moving, and the figure was still sitting there, silently, just watching. Its presence filled the space. It felt like it was growing, spreading like a sickness, like something was crawling into my mind. The whispers, no, the voices, were inside now. "You've seen them, Jake. You've seen all of them." And then it laughed. It was the sound of thousands of whispers at once. The sound of 1,000 souls twisting in agony, their voices overlapping until they were one shrill cacophony. The laugh echoed inside the cab, inside my skull, reverberating against the walls of my mind. I couldn't breathe. The air felt like it was turning to concrete. The truck was speeding now, faster than I could handle, faster than I could control. The road was a blur, the asphalt rushing beneath the tires as if it had a mind of its own. It was taking me somewhere. Somewhere final. "Jake," the voice whispered again, this time softer, sweeter, as if it had all the time in the world. "You've been marked. And now, you're ours." The figure beside me shifted. It didn't move, not physically, but the air around it did. It warped, it thickened, and then I saw it, its hand. Long, pale fingers, stretching toward me. They were impossibly long, unnatural, bent at sharp angles. They reached for me with intent, as if they had always been waiting. I slammed my foot on the brake. The truck didn't stop. It couldn't. The hand was closer now. It was almost on me. The cold, clammy fingers were inches from my arm, reaching out to claim me. "Don't you understand?" The voice purred, a jagged edge to the words now. "You've always been part of us. We're everywhere. You can never escape the road." I could feel it. The moment it touched me, just a brush of its cold fingers against my skin, the world outside twisted. The road ahead flickered. The horizon split open like a crack in the earth. I saw it. An endless dark tunnel. The road was pulling me into it. The truck was no longer moving on its own accord, it was driven by the shadows now. The darkness opened wide, and I felt a pull, like a force too strong to resist. The hand reached for my shoulder, and in that moment, I understood. The road was not a path. It was a trap. The road was them. And they had been waiting for me all along. I was no longer in control. The truck, the road, everything had become a part of the nightmare. There was no escape. The hand that had brushed my arm, cold, alien, like the touch of death itself, was now on my shoulder, gripping me with an unyielding force. The fingers seemed to merge with my skin, cold and brittle, like they were digging into my very bones. I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe. The truck had stopped moving, but we weren't stopped. The darkness around me twisted and warped, shifting into shapes too terrible to comprehend. It was a whirlpool of shadows, an endless void that pulled at everything, my mind, my soul, my very essence. I looked around, but there was no road anymore. There were no signs, no direction, no horizon. The world had disappeared. All that remained was the truck, the seat beneath me, and the cold grasp on my shoulder. The figure beside me was closer now. I could see it more clearly. It wasn't just a shadow anymore, it had shape, form, and eyes. Eyes that burned through the darkness, piercing into me. There was nothing human about it. It was something ancient, something far older than anything I could ever understand. And it was smiling. "Welcome," it whispered. "Welcome to your final destination." The world around me seemed to shift again. The road, a road that hadn't existed moments ago, began to reform. It stretched out in front of me, endlessly, impossibly, like a path to nowhere. But it wasn't just any road. It was my road. The road that had taken me here. "You never should have left," it said, the voice no longer coming from the figure beside me, but from everywhere, inside my head, inside the truck. "You thought you could outrun it. But you can never outrun the road. The road is in you. It always has been." I tried to move, to tear myself away from the grip, but it was as if the road itself had a hold of me. I was stuck. Trapped. A prisoner in my own skin. The air grew colder, denser. The whispers from the shadows around me grew louder. I could hear the sound of tires on asphalt, but it wasn't coming from the truck. It was coming from behind me, from all around me. The figures were everywhere now, their long, gnarled fingers reaching for the truck, for me. Their hollow eyes followed my every movement. I glanced out the window. The world was falling apart. The road beneath us cracked and splintered, opening up into a gaping chasm. I could see it now, the true face of the road. It wasn't just a stretch of asphalt. It was alive. The cracks were its veins, its bloodlines, and the darkness pouring from them was its hunger. The road had been feeding on souls, on people who thought they could drive through, who thought they could outrun it. And now, it had come for me. "You can't escape it, Jake. The road takes all who wander too far. And it doesn't let go." The truck lurched forward, pulling me down the dark path that no one could see but those like me. The road kept stretching ahead, forever stretching, like a twisted ribbon wrapping around the earth, never ending. My hands gripped the wheel, but it didn't matter. I wasn't driving anymore. I was being driven. I looked to the passenger seat again. The figure was still there, but it had grown larger now, filling the space, its form flickering like a dying flame. It opened its mouth, a mouth that was too wide, too unnatural, and it spoke again. "Jake, you're home." The words hit me with a force I couldn't comprehend. I couldn't run. I couldn't escape. The road had become my life, my death, my eternity. There was nothing left for me except this endless highway, this endless hunger that would never cease. The truck accelerated, the speed picking up, faster and faster, as if we were being sucked into the void itself. The shadows pressed in, their long arms reaching, pulling me, and I knew. This was the end. And this was the beginning.